Welcome back. Welcome back. I hope you all enjoyed your Idea Labs.
Next up, we have a preset one with Melanie and Raeshaun.
Come on in, take a seat. I hope you all enjoyed your Idea Labs and were able to get some great ideas. Steal them and steal mercilessly. I'm not sure how I won the honor to introduce this because the next session is one of my personal favorites, and I know it's Julie's too. The RCF story discussion is about hearing directly from adults with CF. It's always open and honest conversation about the good, the bad, and everything in between when it comes to life with cystic fibrosis. Our discussion today is titled, Our CF Story, Embracing What Is While Striving for More. I've got chills just from the title. I can't wait to hear what they have to say. I'm excited to welcome Melanie Lawrence. Melanie is a passionate leader in the CF community and is especially focused on improving the partnerships between care teams and people with CF. Melanie is joined by Raeshaun Jones, who is streaming in live from her home in Virginia. We also want to give a special shout out to Kevin Woolers, who had planned to join us today but is no longer able to do so. Please join me in welcoming Melanie and Raeshaun.
Oh, there we go. Hi, everybody. Thank you, Ray. Thank you, Julie, for being such amazing co-chairs. Thank you to the CF Foundation for the opportunity for Raeshaun and I to share today. As Ray said, even though Kevin couldn't be here today, his thoughtfulness and introspection definitely helped to shape this discussion. And for that, we are grateful. Kevin, if you're watching back home, we send our love and appreciation to you. Hi, Raeshaun. As Dr. Boyle mentioned earlier this morning, the CF community is lucky to be living longer. We are living in such a groundbreaking era where we're benefiting from the research of decades and breakthroughs of many. This means that with that comes more life to experience, more life to weather, more life to participate in, learn from, and grow. It's a journey of accepting what comes our way while striving to make the most of our time here. Thanks to the CFF, the CF Foundation, and researchers and passionate fundraising efforts, our community thanks you. My name, for those who don't know me, is Melanie Lawrence. I am an adult living with CF. I am 42 years old. I am joined here today by my son Miles, who's 11, and my mom Carol. I was diagnosed in 1985 at 5 years old, and I am from Massachusetts. I am passionate about humanity and I am passionate about healthcare, so I really found my calling when those two worlds collide, when I found out a way that those two worlds could collide. And I'm passionate and loving my work with the CF Foundation, the CF Learning Network, and Boston Children's Hospital, trying to work on research and quality improvement to bring more humanity to healthcare. And for those of you who don't know Raeshaun yet, you are in for such a treat. I am so psyched to have her here with us. She is wise beyond her years and such a joy to work with. Raeshaun, do you want to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Mel. That was so sweet. Hi, everyone. So my name is Raeshaun Jones. I'm 28 years old. I'm born and raised in Richmond, Virginia. I was diagnosed at about 3 months old, so pretty much shortly after birth. I'm in the mental health field. That's what I do for work. So I have grown a passion for mental health and CF and kind of how they intertwine. I was a part of the NACFC a couple of years ago, which was a great experience. And about 3 years ago, I started a support group for African Americans with CF, adults, called Inhale Melanin, Exhale Power. And just being a part of that has given me the opportunity to work with people with CF who look like myself, and to just be able to uplift and pretty much share our stories about our diagnosis and how we manage our CF and our care. So I'm super excited to be here, Mel. I'm looking forward to this conversation with you today.
Thanks, Raeshaun. It has been such a pleasure working with you on this, and I'm excited to share our perspectives with you all today. As everyone in this room knows, life is full of ups and downs for all of us. Living with CF can add layers and interesting challenges, which is what Raeshaun and I will sort of be talking about today. Anyone who knows me knows that I don't love small talk. I like to go deep, and I like to go deep fast. So we figured, why not just dive in the deep end and start off with talking about something we're afraid of. Now that, we are living more bountiful lives, like to the fullest, whatever that looks like to us, that does come with fears. And one thing that I've learned that I'm afraid of was, one, I don't want to let fear hold me back, which I think before Trikafta it definitely did. And I think that I will touch on this a little bit later, but one of the things that I've recently celebrated is my divorce. And it was the best decision I ever could have made. But the reason to marry the wrong person was definitely because my health was in question at the time, and I was like, I don't know how much time I have left. So I settled for less than I deserved, and it was an experience that taught me a lot. But one of the things it taught me was that I fear wasting time. I want to make the most of the time that I do have here. And I want to live like the fullest human experience I can. So I fear wasting time doing the wrong things or being in the wrong situations. I'm also learning the flip side, that I learned a lot from my experience with my marriage. And I learned that maybe not all of mistakes are wastes of time, that they help shape our present. So Raeshaun, what is something that you're afraid of?
So I think, so when I was diagnosed, initially they told my mom I wouldn't live past 13. So I've kind of always had this number over my head of like, once I hit 13, that's going to be it. So I've always had the fear of just losing people that are close to me. And being that now I'm 28 and I've surpassed being 13, it's always like that fear that's kind of behind me of outliving the people that I love, family, friends, people that I have met along the CF journey. I always have a fear of just outliving people and not being able to experience these milestones with people that I have built a bond with over the years, because for so long it was like, I probably won't even live long enough to be able to experience, certain things like college and things that are, extremely important. So yeah, losing people that I'm close to is something that I have just always feared.
And thank you for saying that, because I do think that's something that the community doesn't really talk a lot about, but it's something that we all sort of feel. When you were raised pre-Trikafta, pre-modulator, your expectation was to go first. So you never really worried or thought much about what life would look like or how to survive grief of outliving our loved ones. And so thank you for shedding light on that, because I think it's something that the community is currently facing and could probably talk more about. To that note, Raeshaun, you and I have talked a lot about mental health and self-care. And will you share with us what mental health means to you and how you exercise that muscle?
Yeah, so I think mental health is something that as of, recently, maybe the last few years, people have really focused on. I don't think mental health was something that was really talked about for a very, very long time. I know, for myself in the Black community is not something that is really focused on. So I've kind of had to just learn how to take breaks. And you'll be in a certain place and you may meet people and you'll want them to be where you are, but just taking the time to meet the people around you where they are and making a conscious choice to say, hey, if it's something that I can't deal with or maybe too much for me, that's okay. But I think a lot of times, for your mental health, you have to make a choice on whether you want to accept certain things. But I've learned over the years to meet people where they are and understand that they may not necessarily be where you're at. And I've also had to take the time to learn, different coping skills such as journaling. Because, having CF, it does weigh a lot on your mental, being in and out the hospital or just a lot of things that the people around us may not see. We may appear to be strong even in our weakest moments, which can be a lot on your mental health. Not saying that you're trying to keep up with this image, but sometimes, you kind of form this image that even through your darkest times, you seem strong, which can weigh a lot on your mental health. So I think that taking breaks is good. Learning things that you like that allow you to be able to escape reality, such as journaling or going to the beach or, whatever works for you. I think that's something to really consider because having a chronic illness and your mental health, sometimes it can get the best of you sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. And I think for me, there's a direct correlation between where I'm at mentally and where I'm at physically.
Yeah.
I think, I've learned that the two are inextricably connected. So when I'm not feeling well physically or having like an exacerbation, it's more challenging for me to have a positive, healthy mental health space. So I think exercising that muscle as much as I can while I'm healthy and feeling well and centered and grounded is what makes it easier to rely on that muscle when I need to take my foot off the gas, so to speak. So what does that look like for me? I'm a yoga fanatic. I love hot yoga. I'm with you, Raeshaun. I love nature. That's no matter what kind of day I'm having, if I see the ocean or a body of water, it's just like instant zen. And mostly, my biggest crutch, which I think is kind of a coping mechanism, is mindfulness. Because I've learned in my 4 decades here that my anxiety really does come from future what ifs and worrying about things that may never happen. And my stress can come from reliving past situations that I can't go back and change. So I've learned that being in the present moment, being here, being now, so much so that I got a tattoo about it to remind me and keep me focused. That really is my sweet spot. And I know, Raeshaun, you related to that a little bit as well. You also have talked, you alluded to in your opening, what community support looks like, which we've had very interesting, different experiences, I would say.
Yeah.
I think the pandemic taught us that we need our community more than ever. And this community, the CF community, is just unlike any I've ever been exposed to. There's just such a tight-knit quality about us that I really have come to take solace in. And I want Raeshaun to talk a lot about her support group because I think it's so amazing and part of what drew me to connect with her. But I also think there's a downside to the community experience in social media. So for me personally, I find that a lot of the social media chat groups aren't necessarily the healthiest place for me to be. And I would say for me, they feel imbalanced. So it just feels like, and Raeshaun, you can speak to your experience as well. The social media groups sort of feel CF heavy and problem focused and commiserating more than a constructive, productive, supportive, uplifting experience. Raeshaun, what does your community support look like?
Well, I will start off by saying what you just said is true, because the members of my support group came in expecting for it to be that way. So a lot of things that are supposed to be a group for support feel really negative, and it focuses on the sad aspects of it. I know pre-pandemic, we didn't really, nobody really used Zoom that I am aware of. Us having CF, we aren't really supposed to be around each other anyway. So I never connected with anyone with CF prior to the pandemic. But once the pandemic started, it allowed me to, start a support group. And I wanted to start something for, African Americans with CF, because I really didn't see many of us, with CF. So starting that support group allowed us to, log in. And at first it was weird. It was, I won't lie, it was very weird. But it's become a positive space. And we talk about CF. We've educated one another on, like you said, Trikafta, or simple things as far as how to clean your nebulizer cups and things like that. But we also talk about other things like our careers, and some people have children or are married, or our hobbies, mental health. We touch on, whatever we want to, and it's become a really positive space. We meet every week, and even when we take our mental health break, I'll just do random breaks. So, hey guys, take the time today to get out and get some air, or do something that you really enjoy instead of coming to the meeting. But once we, come back, everybody shows up, and everybody's just always excited about it. It's a fun, it's a good time. We have some serious moments. We laugh. Sometimes we play games on there. And it's been 3 years, and I can't believe it, because when I first started, I was like, well, I hope people show up. I hope people like it. I was very nervous, but it's been a positive space. But I do understand what you're saying as far as some of the support groups can be very negative, and it doesn't feel like support. It feels like, a place to come and complain. But CF is heavy enough. So I think it's nice to be able to, we just log on for about an hour to an hour and a half every Monday. And we just meet and talk about our day, talk about how we're feeling. The season is changing. How is everyone doing? We may log on and it'll be somebody in the hospital, and it's like, oh my goodness, how are you feeling? But even being in the hospital, they'll still log on, because it's like, I needed that support. And initially I didn't realize how much of an impact the support group was making. But every year I, ask for everyone to share their favorite parts, and people will point out things that I didn't even think about. Like, it's nice to just come here and laugh, even though it may have been a long day. So yeah, I understand, Mel, what you're saying about what support groups are supposed to be, but starting the support group, I've had great feedback, and it's really become a comfortable space to be able to come and be vulnerable and just be yourself, and sometimes forget about CF, even if it's just for a little bit of time.
We're going to definitely talk more about vulnerability in a minute, but Raeshaun, it really seems like you've struck gold as far as like reaching a balance between supportive, fun, distraction, focus.
Yeah.
I think it's a testament to you and the leader that you are. But I also wonder what advice, if any, you would have for other support groups who who are struggling to find that balance.
So before I log on, I pray before every session, just for, everyone that logs on to be able to feel comfort and peace in that moment, and people who aren't able to log on to be able to find it elsewhere in a healthy way. So I would say, honestly, I think how you are is what you will attract. So, and I've had to balance it, because, I've had some people who may, they're used to that negativity from support groups, and they'll try to, bring it over. And it's like, okay, guys, I have to redirect it so that it doesn't turn into that. So maybe just really thinking of, what you want and what the idea of it is for you, and operating in that space, and then just having patience, At first I was thinking maybe it'll be a lot of people, maybe it won't be a lot of people, but definitely quality over quantity. You don't need 20 people or whatever to make a good group. You could just have 3 and it could be great. So I would say just considering what you really want out of it, and if it's not going the way that you had envisioned, maybe redirecting your plan or taking a step back to say, hey, why, like you said, Mel, why is my support groups, it seems so negative, it's not uplifting, I feel drained every time we meet. I think that would be my advice.
I think that's great advice. And I think whether you call it prayer or meditation, I think what you're really at the core that resonates with me is setting an intention before and holding focus to that intention, I think, is an anchor.
Right.
And also, I love what you said about patience. I mean, who doesn't need more patience?
Yeah, because people expect things to just be, I guess, what it's supposed to be right when it starts. But a caterpillar doesn't start off as a butterfly. It just takes time. And as long as you keep working at it, at some point, it's going to turn out the way you want it.
You did mention vulnerability and being comfortable with putting yourself out there and talking about where you're at the moment.
Yeah.
How do you normalize that process of being vulnerable or accepting that we don't always have to have things figured out?
I think that it takes time to be comfortable with yourself. So for myself, having CF, being at school, I didn't see a lot of people with CF around me. In the Black community, it's not talked about. People don't even really know what CF is, to be honest with you. So, even in high school or my adolescent years, I wasn't comfortable with CF. I would talk to my mom all the time and just be like, why me? Why me? Because I wasn't comfortable, which made it difficult for me to be vulnerable. So if I spent time in the hospital, people didn't know why. My peers didn't know why. I would just come back to school and they'll be like, hey, you're back. Yeah, I'm back. But I never really went into details as to what was going on. And as I got older and I started getting therapy and, my involvement with the CF community, it allowed me to be more comfortable in my skin and with my CF. And Mel, before Trikafta, just coughing all the time used to be so embarrassing. But it takes a lot to be able to be comfortable, even when you cough and somebody's like, oh my gosh. And it's like, I have cystic fibrosis. Sorry, I can't help it. It makes people wonder and want to go do their own research and see, well, what is CF? So I just think being more comfortable with yourself allows you to be more confident, which, it kind of feels like a domino effect to be vulnerable about yourself and just accepting everything that you come with. I don't think anybody wished to have CF or any other chronic illnesses. And even therapy as well. Therapy, just talking through some things, talking about past experiences, it allows you to be able to be vulnerable and be comfortable in that, because being vulnerable is very difficult and, it's not a comfortable feeling. So I think being confident with yourself and learning and growing in your flaws and everything that you come with allows you to be, more vulnerable. Yes,
I 100% agree. I have been in therapy as well, and I look at therapists as puzzle helpers.
Yeah.
We come with, sometimes when you're in the puzzle, it's hard to see all the pieces and how they fit together. And I think that it's for me, therapy has helped me ask for what I need.
Right.
For example, sorry, Mom, I'm gonna throw you under the bus for a second. I've noticed that when my health is sort of ebbing and flowing and it's on a downward trend, it's not only scary for me and stressful for me, it's understandably scary and stressful for those who love me. Yeah. But when they project that fear onto me, and it feels like I'm not only carrying my burden, I'm carrying theirs too. And then I have to filter my experience so that I can take care of them and help them worry less. So it's been a journey for me to sort of ask for people not to project it, like to sort of handle, I understand that you're scared or you're worried, but you also have to trust me in my decision making, and that like I've been living with this my whole life, and though you may not agree with every choice I make, it's my choice to make, which has been a journey for sure.
Yeah, and yeah, my mom, she was the same way. I mean, my mom was the same way, and she still is, you know, even with me being an adult, she still, if I cough for 1 second and we don't even live together, it's like, Raeshaun, did you take your treatments? Have you took your medicine? And like you said, sometimes, you know, growing up, it can be nerve-wracking because it's like, man, I'm living with CF, not you. But yeah, I think any parent that cares will probably, you know, be very nervous, and especially because they've cared for us and, you know, helped us to basically live this long. But I definitely understand what you're saying because my mom, sorry mom, but she's, you know, she's been that way, you know, as far as CF my whole life, just a little overbearing, but I know it's all in good intentions and it's all because she cares. And, you know, sometimes when you're not feeling your best, sometimes you need that push, but yeah, it can be a bit overbearing sometimes.
That's true, and I don't know if you can hear Raeshaun, but there are definitely people in the room who can relate.
I can't hear. I can just hear you. I can't hear anything in the room.
You got some giggles. I think that there are some parents in the room taking mental notes.
Yeah, you know, definitely appreciate the support, but sometimes it's like, okay, come on, let me come up for air a little bit.
Exactly, and also like, you've had your life to live and learn, and this is our turn at the wheel, and we're gonna fumble, we're gonna make mistakes, but we're gonna learn too. And to that regard, my next question, Kevin helped shape when we were having all of these panel meetings, where he was talking about a story where he felt like a failure. And I said, I really have a problem with that word, and I would like us to like reclaim it in a more positive way. Instead of calling it like failing, maybe we could call it falling. And what we learned from the fall that helped us get up, dust ourselves off, and carry on. So it sparked a whole discussion about reframing failure to be a learning experience of falling. And Raeshaun, I was wondering if you could start us off with a reframe of a fall that you had.
Yeah, so, you know, being in and out the hospital a lot, pretty much my whole life. Once I graduated high school, I didn't have the best GPA, so a lot of my peers were going straight to four-year universities, and I automatically felt like a failure because everybody was leaving, everybody was posting on social media about their move-in day, and I was still at home. So I started off at community college, and I really didn't like it, but I felt like I needed to do something to make myself feel like I was, I guess, where I wanted to be. So I was like, you know, I really got to figure this thing out. Like, I don't want to feel like I'm failing at life and the goals that I want to attain due to CF. So I applied to VCU, Virginia Commonwealth University in Richmond, Virginia, and I didn't get in. So I felt so down about myself. I was like, oh my goodness, all of my friends are gone and I didn't get in. So I kept working at community college and I saved up my little money working at JCPenney, and I wound up applying to ODU. So I just wanted to spread my wings and get out on my own, and I knew my mom was going to try to talk me out of it. So I applied at ODU and I didn't tell my mom. And after I applied and I got in, I was like, oh, Mom, by the way, I got into ODU. And she's like, what? Like, you know, she's trying to talk me out of it. She's telling me maybe we can wait another semester. Maybe we just need more time. We need more time. But she needed more time. I didn't need more time. So I got to ODU, and it was my first time being out of my mom's house. So nobody telling me take your treatments, you need to eat, you need to make sure you're taking your enzymes. Like, I was just living free. I was having a great time. But then shortly after, I realized that I didn't really like ODU. So I had been praying, and I was like, I really want to go to VCU. Like, that's where I started off. That's where I want to go. So, you know, on your laptop, sometimes the different wallpapers will filter through. And one day I opened up my laptop and a RAM appeared on my computer, which is VCU's mascot. And I was like, oh my gosh, is this confirmation? So I applied to VCU. I got my little money together again. I applied to VCU. I didn't write a statement to get in or anything. I was just going with it. And I wound up getting in. And the initial feeling of I'm a failure, I didn't get into school, it's like it was a full circle moment and it just worked out for me. And all of that was a lesson. Me going to ODU prepared me for VCU. I started doing better with my studies, making very good grades, graduating with a high GPA. So all of that was a lesson. And it took me 7 years to get my degree, but after, that feeling of failure, it eventually came to, here we are, like, we made it. So, yeah, I don't like the word failure either, Mel. I think it's harsh.
I just love this story so much because it's such a testament to perseverance and not giving up and going for what you want despite the challenge. Like, so many people would have given up and said, oh, I didn't get in. Yeah. Whatever, why bother? And I just love that you reframed it and that you took it as a sign and went for it and got it. And I'm so proud of you for that.
Thank you.
You also touched upon something that I think many in the community can relate to, which is sort of testing the waters as far as our treatments go. And see, I think it's like almost a rite of passage. I know I did the same thing. About when you get your independence, and I think it's a journey to figure out, well, I've been conditioned to take these meds my whole life. Do I really need them? Yeah. What's the worst that could happen if I stop? I think a lot of us try that, and it's a growing experience that is it feels like a rite of passage.
Yeah.
When did you learn that you really did need your treatments and therapies?
At ODU, I spent a lot of time in and out the hospital, and it really impacted my grades and impacted my studies because, having a CF flare-up and feeling sick causes you to be tired. And, being in college, it takes, you have to focus on your studies and things of that sort. And I wasn't taking care of myself for a very, very long time. And I think being from under my mom's wing, like you said, I just wanted to test the waters. I didn't have anybody in my ear every day telling me, it's noon and you haven't even taken your first treatment and you should be on your second set by now. Like, just being able to get out of the house and, do, what I wanted when I wanted was very nice. But I realized that I was getting very, very sick. And every time I would go to the doctor, my PFTs were getting lower and lower. And Dr. Chaudry would say, you're losing lung function and you're not getting them back. So I had a scare. I had went to New York one time and I was very sick. I didn't even know I had pneumonia. I knew I was sick, but everything was paid for and I didn't want to miss out. So I made my way all the way to New York. I made my way all the way to New York and I got there and immediately I had to turn back around and come back the very next day and go to the hospital. And that was the scariest moment I've ever had because I couldn't even walk. For me, I can walk and I may be a little winded, but I don't have to stop and take breaks. But I was so sick. I think my PFTs had dropped to the 30s. And after that, it was kind of like my aha moment. And I said, I really gotta take care of myself because I may not be living the next 5 years to experience life. So, and you can see even with that experience, my mom wasn't there. I was at ODU and I had to figure it out on my own and kind of get really, really sick to be able to say, I have to make better choices. And my mom had been telling me that my whole life, but because it's mom, it's like, whatever, no, I'm not taking the treatment and I'm about to go to the movies. So it took a while. It took a very long time, but I'm glad I finally got it.
Yeah, I'm glad you did too.
Yeah, it was rough.
I think one of the harder lessons with playing with fire and not taking my meds like I should have, or as well as I should have, I think one of my lessons came from learning that I would let myself get so sick that I remember I played volleyball in high school, and it's like a core memory that I'll never forget is I was in the middle of a game and my coach pulled me aside and said, "Melanie, I'm worried about you." And I was like, "No, coach, I'm fine. I got it." And he's like, "Melanie, you're gray." And I was like, "It's no big deal." I'm just hot. And like I realized that I would put it off so long that it would take me that much longer to rebound and feel better. And so one of my growing lessons and experiences was learning that when I was proactive and started therapy sooner, I rebounded faster and could get back to the things that I loved and brought me joy. So that was one of my ahas with protesting and sticking my head in the sand.
And we've talked about that, getting ready for this panel. Just take care of it now. Don't prolong it because it's going to take longer to get up.
And why did we talk about that? Because I was putting it off.
Yeah, I was putting it off.
See, I'm a work in progress, but I'm getting there. And I'm totally digressing. I know I have to answer my question about falling. And I think that, society tells you or tells me that getting divorced is seen as a failure. But for me, it really was such a good growing experience. I also happened to get to leave my marriage during the start of the pandemic, which was super interesting. Having to move without anybody's help, or like nobody could touch me or my things. It was I had to order everything online, sight unseen, and piece it together. It was such an interesting experience. And I was alone because we were all self-quarantining. But it was so metaphoric and poetic. And I could have looked at it with despair, like, oh my God, I'm alone, it's a pandemic, my marriage failed. But I chose to look at it the opposite way because I realized living in such an unhealthy environment where I wasn't happy and knew I didn't belong, my health was not great. And I was constantly getting sick, constantly needing antibiotics, and constantly just not feeling well. And as soon as I got out of that environment into my own space, it was just like a wave of peace flooded over me, and I could breathe in a different way that I couldn't have breathed before, which is, to me, a sign that it was the right decision to make. And then my health just started to upswing from there. And I realized how I needed that time of the quarantine and the pandemic and the divorce. Like, it was such a gift to have that time where I didn't have to be anywhere. I didn't have to, be running my son around to soccer and all of these things. I could really just pause from life in the world and reflect on the lessons in it. And where did I make bad choices? Why did I make those choices? Where could I have done better? And I think it helped me grow exponentially in ways that I'll do relationships different moving forward. I had to take a journey of self-worth for sure, but also such a journey in how taking care of my mental health impacts my physical health. So I'm actually really quite grateful for the whole experience. And if you want to call it failing or falling, go for it. I don't care what you call it. But it was just I think that without falling, I don't think we'd be as resilient or I wouldn't be as resilient as I am, that's for sure. And I think CF helps, or chronic illness in general, is really a resiliency boot camp. Because Raeshaun, we've talked about this, if you don't get back up and dust yourself off, nobody's gonna do it for you. So I think CF is such a wonderful tool for resilience. And that leads me to my next question, which is I think that CF is, I view it as such a positive, and living with chronic illness in general, I think, yes, it's challenging, but boy, are there positives there. It's a game changer. So Raeshaun, I'm going to ask you, what is a gift or gifts that living with CF has given you?
I'm going to go back a little bit.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Talked about this. But I just wanted to comment and just say, going through that divorce, I think that's great because it helps you to, kind of experience, I don't know how long you were married, but I don't think we touched on that. But being able to regain that sense of self and just be more independent through the pandemic, that's hard. I mean, I'm sure you've heard stories of a lot of people who said my marriage ended in the pandemic because it was terrible. But I think it's great that you got to experience that and you got to get through it. And then also, it goes to show what we talked about mental health, how much it plays a role in your CF. You weren't happy for, whatever those personal reasons may be. But once you realize I'm really not happy here and you got out of that negative space, it allowed you to blossom. So I think that's good.
Thank you. Thank you, friend.
You're welcome. So, CF, we could talk all day about the challenges, right? But I think the gift that CF has given me is to be able to meet other people with CF and know that you're not alone, and to feel comfortable knowing that there are people all around the world who are facing the same challenges that you're facing. And I think also for myself, just being able to get the mindset to say, hey, just do it. We spent a lot of time just being very sick, being ill, not knowing if I'll be living the next 5, 10, 15 years to be able to start families, get married, go to school, advance in our career paths. So I think CF has taught me you really don't have anything to lose. Either you're going to experience a bump in the road, which is going to eventually make you stronger and you'll be able to take lessons from the challenges that you had to face. It just allows you to just maximize life, to just make the most out of each day, experience life in the best way that you can, because for so long, we didn't know if we would be able to do that. And now we're here talking about it together.
We are, and you are crushing it. And you're so young and you have so much future ahead of you. I cannot wait to see where you go and how much you crush this world. You are such a joy. Isn't she great?
Oh, thank you, guys.
Can you hear that, Raeshaun?
I can't. I only can hear you. I'm sorry.
You just got a round of applause because you're so amazing.
Thank you, guys. I wish I could hear, but thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, so a gift that CF has given. I do think I agree with you, Raeshaun, that there's something to be said with having mortality in the back of your mind, like an awareness of mortality at such a young age. So most people don't really, it's like a window you get to peek out of, and most people don't get to peek out of that window until they're further along in life, like in their 50s, 60s, 70s, and then they'll peek out that window and they're like, oh shoot, like I'm not going to be here forever. Yeah. I better start making this time count. So to have a peek out of that window from childhood, I think has been extraordinary in the best way. And for me, one of the ways that's impacted my life is to just make it, one, makes life that much richer. But two, it gives me the presence to absorb it and to be in it more. I think it's easy, for me anyway, I'm still human and I still get caught up in running my son to soccer or getting him to school or getting my to-do list done. That seems to be never ending. But I also have that balance of slowing down. And I see this in my son too, and that's been a real treat to experience through his eyes. But just to slow down enough to notice the little things and have deeper connections with the people around you. You're not just going through, I'm not just going through life, I'm relishing in it and swimming in it and feeling all of the feels, because I know I'm so lucky to be alive that I just soak in that gratitude and that good fortune. Like Raeshaun, we both know people who have sadly already passed away from CF, and that's such a propellant for like, we're still here. What are we going to do with it? How are we going to pay homage and live for them? And I think that's one of the gifts that CF has given me for sure.
And how beautiful is it to finally be in a space where you feel good mentally and physically, and to be able to experience those moments, like just sitting in the moment and doing something as simple as looking at the clouds, like opposed to being in the hospital getting chest PT every 4 hours.
Nail on head.
Yeah.
Like even when I'm not feeling well and sick at home, I can look out the window and catch like the sunset from my couch and just be like, life is so beautiful. Like, what do I have to be sad about? Like, this is going to pass like everything else does.
It really allows you to appreciate the little things.
100%.
Yeah, I love that for you.
You have it too.
I know, but what you just said just sounds so, I was like, wow, I think I need to go sit outside and look at the clouds or something.
We're nature people.
I know.
So sadly, that brings our discussion to a close. I just wanted to thank all of you here and at home for listening to us and for being such a kind audience and for all that you do. Thank you to the CF Foundation for the opportunity for us to share our perspectives with you today. It has been such a gift to be here and such a joy. Raeshaun, I've loved every minute with you. When I was asked to moderate this panel, I was asked to sort of come up with topics and ideas. And Raeshaun, going back to your point earlier, it started with an intention. And my intention was, I don't really know where the panel is going to go or where we're going to take it, but it's important to me to leave the room feeling something. Any human emotion that makes you feel alive. And I hope, Raeshaun and I, that we have given you some food for thought on what gifts CF or living with any challenge has given you. And I hope that you can take a few minutes to just reflect on it. And we have like, I think we're finishing 10 minutes ahead of schedule. So how amazing would it be if we could just connect with one another or share a gift that CF has given you with the other people in this room. I think you all are just amazing, and it's been such an honor.
Amazing. That was such a treat. Thank you so much for your vulnerability, for your honesty, and sharing your experiences. We are inspired by you and your positive perspective, and I charge you all to share your positive experience with CF with your table after we take a break.